I am Abigail, 28 years old, and I have always been the responsible one in my family. While my bank account grew from years of hard work, my emotional reserves drained from constant family obligations. My breaking point came when my sister Diana demanded I babysit her children for 2 weeks so she and her husband could vacation in Hawaii without me. When I refused, her palm connected with my cheek so hard it echoed through the restaurant. That slap changed everything. Before I tell you how my family went from treating me like their personal bank to begging for mercy, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you have ever had to cut off toxic family members. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Grand Rapids, Michigan, shaped my early understanding of family dynamics. Despite being 5 years younger than my sister Diana, I always shouldered more responsibility. Our modest two-story home housed 4 people with vastly different approaches to life. My father Richard worked as an accountant, putting in long hours to provide for us, while my mother Eleanor ran a small beauty salon. Diana, now 33, was the undisputed favorite child from day one. My parents never tried to hide their preference. When Diana brought home C grades, she received praise and rewards for trying her best. When I brought home straight, as it was simply expected. Dad would occasionally acknowledge my academic achievements with a quick pat on the shoulder, but Mom barely noticed. Diana received a car for her 16th birthday despite failing her driving test twice. When my 16th birthday arrived, I received a card with $20 inside and instructions to save it for college. After Dad passed away from a heart attack when I was 19, the family dynamics shifted even further. Mom became even more protective of Diana, as if compensating for Dad's absence. Meanwhile, I threw myself into my studies, determined to build a life of financial independence. My academic focus paid off. I earned a full scholarship to the University of Michigan, where I graduated with honors in finance. While Diana cycled through 3 different community colleges without completing any degree, I secured an internship at a prestigious consulting firm during my junior year. By 23, I had a full-time position with benefits and a promising career trajectory. My professional rise continued steadily. I put in extra hours, volunteered for challenging projects, and built a reputation for reliability and innovation. By 25, I had saved enough for a down payment on a small but modern apartment in downtown Grand Rapids. At 28, my annual salary reached 6 figures, allowing me to live comfortably while still saving for retirement. Diana followed a very different path. After half-heartedly attempting various college programs, she met Mark at a bar when she was 24. Mark, 35, now worked as a sales representative for a local furniture company. Their whirlwind romance resulted in marriage after just 6 months of dating. Within a year, Diana gave birth to their daughter Lily, now 7. Their son Benjamin followed 2 years later and is now 5. Despite Mark earning a decent salary, Diana and her family lived in perpetual financial chaos. Diana never held a job longer than 8 months, claiming various reasons, from toxic work environments to needing to focus on the children. Their apartment, while spacious enough for a family of 4, always seemed cluttered and in disrepair. Bills piled up on their kitchen counter, many stamped with final notices. The pattern of financial dependency established itself gradually. It started small during my senior year of college, when Diana called asking for $200 to cover an unexpected car repair. I sent the money, immediately concerned about my pregnant sister driving an unsafe vehicle. She promised to pay me back with her next paycheck, but that repayment never materialized. Over the years, these emergency requests multiplied in both frequency and amount. Medical bills for the children's school supplies, unexpected car repairs, rent shortfalls, and utility reconnection fees became regular expenses in my budget. Each time, Diana would share tearful stories about how the children would suffer without my help. Each time, repayment was promised but never delivered. Last year alone, I covered over $15,000 in expenses for Diana and her family. I paid for new tires on their car, a laptop for Mark when he claimed he needed it for work, and even funded a week-long family trip to Florida because the children deserved a vacation. Meanwhile, I postponed my own vacation dreams, telling myself family came first. The manipulation tactics evolved alongside the financial requests. Diana mastered the art of the guilt trip, frequently reminding me that blood is thicker than water and questioning whether I truly loved her children if I hesitated to provide money. Mom reinforced these messages, calling me selfish whenever I expressed concerns about the ongoing financial drain. Diana became particularly skilled at using her children as emotional leverage. She would put Lily and Benjamin on the phone to ask if Aunt Abby could help buy school supplies or tell them within my hearing that we cannot afford new shoes this month unless Aunt Abby helps us. The children, innocent in this manipulation, became unwitting pawns in the ongoing exploitation. My resentment grew alongside my bank account withdrawals. I started avoiding family dinners, knowing they would inevitably end with a request for money. I screened my calls, feeling a knot in my stomach whenever Diana's name appeared on my phone. Yet, despite my growing awareness of the unhealthy dynamic, I continued providing financial support, telling myself it was temporary. That Diana and Mark would eventually become financially stable. That saying no would hurt the children I genuinely loved. In my most honest moments alone in my apartment, after transferring yet another sum to Diana's account, I admitted the painful truth to myself. I kept giving not just for the children, but because financial support was the only way I felt valued by my family. It was as if I were purchasing the affection that should have been freely given, paying admission to remain part of a family that saw me as an ATM rather than a sister or daughter. The first mention of Hawaii came during a Sunday family dinner at my mother's house in early April. These monthly gatherings had become predictable affairs. Mom would cook, Diana would dominate the conversation, Mark would offer occasional comments about sports or work, and I would listen while helping with dishes and entertaining the Bako children. That particular Sunday, as I helped Lily with her drawing at the kitchen table, Diana breezed in carrying a stack of glossy travel brochures. "Look what Mark brought home from work yesterday," she announced, spreading photos of pristine beaches and luxury resorts across the table. One of his clients owns a travel agency and gave him these brochures for Hawaii. The pictures look absolutely amazing. Mom immediately expressed enthusiasm, poring over images of palm trees and turquoise waters. "What a wonderful family vacation that would be," she said, looking meaningfully at me. I nodded absently, assuming this was just another of Diana's aspirational conversations about places she would like to visit someday. As dinner progressed, Diana continued referencing Hawaii, mentioning specific resorts and activities. "The Grand Wailea has 5 swimming pools and a water elevator. The kids would love that," she said while serving herself a second helping of potatoes. "And Mark really wants to try surfing lessons." Only as the meal concluded did I notice that all references to the trip included only Diana, Mark, and occasionally Mom. No mention of me joining them. Even more tellingly, Diana made several comments about how Lily and Benjamin would miss their cousins while in Hawaii despite my childless status. The subtle implication hung in the air, but I dismissed it as coincidental phrasing. 3 days later, Diana and Mark appeared at my apartment door unannounced. I had just returned from work and was still in my business attire when the doorbell rang. Opening the door revealed Diana's beaming face, and Mark shifting uncomfortably behind her, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Surprise visit, Diana," exclaimed, pushing past me into the living room. "We have something exciting to discuss with you." After declining my offer of coffee, they settled onto my couch. Diana immediately pulled out the now familiar Hawaiian brochures, along with printed flight itineraries and resort confirmations. With growing unease, I realized this was not a hypothetical vacation discussion. "So here is the plan," Diana said, spreading the papers across my coffee table. "Mark and I are going to spend 2 weeks in Maui this June. We found an amazing deal through his client, but we need to book within the next week to secure it." Mark nodded along, still not meeting my eyes directly. "The discount is substantial," he added. "Almost 40% off the regular rate." Diana continued without pause. "Mom might join us for the second week, depending on whether she can get someone to cover the salon." She finally looked up, fixing me with what I recognized as her favor-asking expression. "And we were hoping you could watch Lily and Benjamin while we are gone." The request hung in the air between us. 2 weeks of childcare while they vacationed in paradise. I remained silent, processing both the audacity of the request and the careful planning that had clearly gone into this ambush. The kids absolutely adore you, Diana pressed on, interpreting my silence as consideration rather than shock, and you have that spare bedroom in your apartment that would be perfect for them. What about my work? I asked, finally. I cannot take 2 weeks off with such short notice. I have client meetings and project deadlines. Diana waved away my concern. You work from home some days already. Just do that for 2 weeks. The kids can entertain themselves during your work hours. Before I could formulate a response to this unreasonable suggestion, Mark cleared his throat. There is one more small thing, he said, shooting a glance at Diana. The discount is amazing, but the total cost is still significant. We were hoping you might be able to help with some of the expenses. How much? I asked, my voice flat. Diana beamed, interpreting my question as agreement. Just $5,000. That would cover our flights and half the resort fee. We will handle the rest. The conversation lasted another 30 minutes, with Diana outlining their planned activities and Mark occasionally mentioning the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity this trip represented. Not once did either of them acknowledge the magnitude of what they were asking: 2 weeks of full-time childcare plus a $5,000 contribution toward a vacation that excluded me entirely. When they finally left, I sat in stunned silence in my living room, surrounded by the Hawaiian brochures they had deliberately left behind. The paradise images seemed to mock me now, representing not just a vacation I was not invited to join but expected to partially fund. My initial hesitation quickly solidified into determination to decline. I had recently received a significant promotion that came with increased responsibilities. Our team was launching a major client project in June that required my daily involvement and oversight. Taking 2 weeks away from the office during this crucial period would be professional suicide. Moreover, I had been saving for my own vacation for nearly 2 years, carefully setting aside funds for a solo trip to Bali. The tickets were not yet purchased, but I had researched extensively and planned to book within the next month for a September departure. Diana knew about these plans as I had mentioned them during previous family gatherings. The following day, I called Diana with what I thought was a reasonable compromise. I offered to help find and vet a professional nanny service and contribute $1,000 toward either their vacation or the childcare costs. I explained my work commitments and gently reminded her of my own upcoming travel plans. Diana's response was immediate and hostile. I cannot believe you are being so selfish, she snapped. It is just 2 weeks of your life. Mark and I never get to travel because we have children, unlike you. The least you could do is help us have this one vacation. This initial rejection launched a full-scale pressure campaign. Diana called daily, each conversation beginning with casual catching up before inevitably turning to the Hawaii trip. She sent text messages containing photos of Hawaiian beaches with captions like, "Imagine how relaxing this would be for us, and we really need this break from parenting." Mom joined the effort within days. Her approach centered on questioning my commitment to family. "I just do not understand why you cannot help your sister enjoy a much-needed vacation," she said during one call. "After everything she has done for you." When pressed about what exactly Diana had done for me, Mom vaguely referenced childhood memories and Diana always being there emotionally. The irony of this claim was not lost on me, but arguing proved futile. The most manipulative tactic came when Diana began involving her children. She coached Lily to call me directly, her small voice asking Aunt Abby, "Mommy says we get to stay with you for 2 whole weeks while they go to a special island. Can we bring our swimsuits for your apartment pool?" The pressure mounted daily. Diana began mentioning financial challenges that could be solved by the amazing opportunity this discounted vacation represented. "Mark has been so stressed at work," she explained during one call. "This trip would revitalize him and ultimately help him earn more commission. It is really an investment in our family's future." 2 weeks after their initial visit, I received a text from Mom inviting me to dinner at Riverside Grill, an upscale restaurant downtown. The message mentioned celebrating my recent promotion, which immediately triggered suspicion since neither Mom nor Diana had shown much interest when I first shared the news a month earlier. The trap was sprung the moment I arrived at the restaurant. Not only were Diana, Mark, and Mom waiting at the table, but Lily and Benjamin were also present, dressed in their nicest clothes and clearly prepped to be on their best behavior. My mother had selected a round table in the center of the restaurant surrounded by other diners, ensuring any disagreement would occur in full public view. The breaking point dinner began with superficial pleasantries as we settled into our seats at Riverside Grill. The restaurant hummed with conversation and the clink of expensive glassware. Diana had dressed for the occasion in a new blouse I had never seen before, while Mark wore a button-down shirt that still had creases from the packaging. Mom kept patting my hand across the table, her smile tight and artificial. "Let us order appetizers for the whole table," Diana announced, barely glancing at the prices. "The calamari here is amazing, and we should get the charcuterie board too." She waved over the waiter without waiting for agreement. As drink orders were placed, I noticed that both Diana and Mark selected top-shelf cocktails while Mom chose an expensive wine. Benjamin tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "Mommy said, you are paying because you got a special job prize." The pieces clicked into place. Not only was this dinner an ambush about Hawaii, but they had also assumed I would cover the entire bill. I said nothing, watching, as appetizers were ordered with abandon, followed by some of the most expensive entrees on the menu. Mom selected a $40 steak, while Diana and Mark both ordered seafood specials with market pricing. Between appetizers and main courses, Diana tapped her glass with a spoon, calling for attention. "I would like to make a toast," she announced loudly, ensuring nearby tables could hear. "To my amazing sister Abigail, who not only recently received a well-deserved promotion, but has also agreed to give Mark and me the gift of time by watching our wonderful children while we take a much-needed vacation to Hawaii next month." Glasses were raised expectantly. My mother beamed. Mark finally made eye contact with me, a mixture of guilt and hope in his expression. The children looked confused but excited. All eyes at the table fixed on me, waiting for my appreciative response to this public declaration. "I never agreed to that," I said, quietly but firmly. Diana's smile faltered momentarily before returning, stretched and unnatural. "Do not be modest, Abby. We have been discussing it for weeks." "No," I replied, keeping my voice level. "You have been pressuring me for weeks. I have consistently explained that I cannot take time off work during our major project launch. I offered to help find alternative childcare and contribute financially, but I cannot watch the children for 2 weeks in June." A tense silence fell over our table. A server approaching with entrees sensed the atmosphere and retreated discreetly. "But we already put down the deposit," Mark said, looking genuinely concerned. "The client discount expires next week." "Perhaps you should have confirmed with me before making financial commitments based on my unpaid labor." I responded, my voice still calm despite the anger building inside me. Diana's face flushed red. "What about your vacation?" she demanded. "You were planning to go somewhere too." "Yes, to Bali, in September. After saving for 2 years and scheduling around my work commitments." My mother interjected with a dismissive wave. "You can reschedule your little trip. This is family we are talking about. Diana and Mark need this vacation more than you do. They have children after all." "My trip is not little and my time is not less valuable because I do not have children," I replied, feeling a strange calm as I finally voiced thoughts long suppressed. Diana's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "What if we increased your fee? Would 7,000 cover it? That is more than fair for 2 weeks of babysitting." The word fee hit me like a splash of cold water. Not a gift between sisters or mutual support within a family, but a transaction. A fee for services rendered. "This is not about money," I explained. "I have professional responsibilities I cannot abandon, and frankly, I am tired of being treated like a resource rather than a family member." Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, studying the tablecloth. The children had grown quiet, sensing the adult tension, but not understanding its source. Benjamin leaned against my arm while Lily twisted her napkin nervously. Diana stood abruptly. "I need to use the restroom. Abigail, come with me." It was not a request, but a command. My mother nodded encouragingly, clearly expecting me to follow and be talked back to reason. Against my better judgment, I rose and followed Diana through the restaurant to the ladies' room. The bathroom door had barely closed behind us when Diana turned on me, her face contorted with rage. "What the hell do you think you are doing?" she hissed. making me look like a fool in front of everyone. We have been planning this for months. You have been planning this, I corrected her, without consulting me. I have been clear about my position. Your position, Diana laughed bitterly. Your position should be supporting your family. What else are you doing with your life? Working and coming home to an empty apartment. At least help those of us who are building something meaningful. The implication that my life lacked meaning because I had chosen career over immediate family stung, but I held my ground. I have built a meaningful life, Diana. One that does not revolve around exploiting others. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. Exploiting. Is that what you think family is? Taking care of each other? When was the last time you took care of me? I asked quietly. When have you ever considered my needs or supported my goals? Diana stepped closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You owe us. You have all this money and freedom because you do not have responsibilities like we do. The least you could do is share some of those resources instead of being so selfish. I have shared, I replied. Thousands of dollars every year. Emergency funds, car repairs, school supplies, medical bills. I have given and given while receiving nothing but demands for more. Something in Diana snapped at that moment. Her face contorted with a rage I had never witnessed before, not even in our childhood squabbles. Nothing, she shrieked. You ungrateful little bitch. We include you in family events, even though you are a workaholic with no social skills. We let you be part of our children's lives even though you will never have your own. And this is how you repay us. Her hand moved so quickly I had no time to react. The slap connected with my left cheek with surprising force, the crack of skin against skin echoing in the tiled bathroom. My head jerked sideways and a sharp sting spread across my face. For several seconds we both stood frozen in shock. Diana seemed as surprised by her action as I was. Then her expression hardened into righteousness. You deserved that, she said coldly. Maybe it will knock some sense into you. She pushed past me out of the bathroom, leaving me alone with my stinging cheek and the sudden clarity that comes with physical shock. The woman in the mirror looked different somehow. Eyes, wider, posture straighter, as if something fundamental had shifted inside her. I took several deep breaths, splashed cold water on my face, and returned to the table where conversation had fallen silent. A red mark was clearly visible on my cheek, but no one acknowledged it. Diana was already eating her entree, which had arrived during our absence. Mom was cutting her steak while Mark stared intently at his plate. Is everything okay? Aunt Abby Lily asked quietly, noticing my expression. Before I could answer, my mother laughed artificially loud. Oh, sisters being sisters, she said to no one in particular. They have always been passionate when they disagree. Remember when they fought over that doll at Christmas when they were little? Her casual dismissal of the assault that had just occurred was perhaps more shocking than the slap itself. Mark continued eating in silence, occasionally shooting uncomfortable glances my way but saying nothing in my defense. In that moment, surrounded by people who claimed to love me yet treated me with such disregard, something crystallized in my mind. This was not family in any meaningful sense of the word. This was exploitation wrapped in blood ties, manipulation disguised as love. The decision formed in my mind with perfect clarity as I sat at that restaurant table. Without drawing attention, I gathered my purse and jacket from the back of my chair. No dramatic announcement, no tearful confrontation. I simply stood up and stepped away from the table. Where are you going? Diana asked sharply. We have not finished dinner. I am finished, I replied quietly. Do not be so sensitive, Mom said, with a dismissive wave. Diana did not mean it. You know how she gets. Mark kept his eyes fixed on his plate, cutting his salmon into increasingly smaller pieces. Only the children looked genuinely concerned, their young faces reflecting confusion at the adult tension they could sense but not understand. Bye, Aunt Abby, Benjamin said, his small voice uncertain. I squeezed his shoulder gently. Bye, buddy. Then I walked calmly through the restaurant and out into the cool evening air. In my car, I sat motionless for several minutes, my hand occasionally touching the cheek where Diana's handprint was still faintly visible. Tears threatened but did not fall. Instead, a strange sense of peace settled over me, the kind that comes with absolute certainty. As I drove home, memories of financial entanglements with my family surfaced one after another, the automatic payments set up from my account to Diana's for emergency funds that somehow became monthly expectations. The children's private school tuition that I had agreed to supplement temporarily 2 years ago. The car insurance for both Diana and Mark's vehicles that had migrated to my policy when they claimed financial hardship. There was the credit card I had added Diana to as an authorized user when she claimed she needed to build credit history, but which I still paid every month. The cell phone family plan under my name. The streaming services, the warehouse club membership, the monthly transfers to my mother's account to help with property taxes. The list grew longer as I mentally cataloged each financial tie. By the time I reached my apartment, I had identified over a dozen ongoing financial commitments to my family, totaling nearly $3,000 monthly, not including the irregular emergency requests that averaged another $1,000 each month. Inside my apartment, I pulled out my laptop and created a detailed spreadsheet. Every payment, every account, every financial connection between my resources and my family members. The total at the bottom of the screen was staggering, over $40,000 in the past year alone. More than many people's annual salary given freely to family members who had responded by demanding childcare and partial funding for a vacation that excluded me. I reached for my phone and called Barbara, my financial advisor, despite the late hour. After briefly explaining the situation, I scheduled an emergency meeting for the following morning. Next, I spent 2 hours researching legal obligations between family members, confirming what I already suspected: I had no legal responsibility to continue any of this financial support. The night passed in a blur of planning and documentation. By morning, I had created a comprehensive financial separation strategy with 3 clear phases: immediate cancellation of discretionary support, structured termination of ongoing commitments, and legal protection of my assets moving forward. At 9 a.m., I met with Barbara at her office, spreadsheet in hand. I had no idea the situation had grown to this extent, she said, reviewing the financial connections. This is not sustainable, Abigail, even with your income. I know, I replied. I need to end it cleanly and completely. Barbara helped me prioritize the financial cutoffs, beginning with the most discretionary expenses. By noon, I had removed Diana as an authorized user on my credit card, canceled the automatic monthly transfers to both Diana and my mother's accounts, called the children's school to inform them I would no longer be contributing to tuition after the current term, contacted my insurance agent to remove Diana and Mark's vehicles from my policy, terminated the family cell phone plan effective immediately, canceled subscription services that my family accessed. Each action brought a strange mixture of anxiety and relief. My hands trembled slightly as I made the calls, but my voice remained steady. This was not an emotional reaction, but a necessary financial correction. That afternoon, I drafted a clear, factual email to Diana, Mark, and my mother. No accusations, no emotional language, just a straightforward account of the financial changes I had implemented and the timeline for remaining transitions. I explained that I would continue covering the school tuition through the end of the current term to avoid disrupting the children's education, but all other support had ended effective immediately. The email concluded with a simple statement: after careful consideration, I have realized that our current financial relationship is unhealthy for all involved. This change will allow each of us to establish appropriate financial independence. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. After sending the email, I took one final step toward establishing boundaries. I changed my personal phone number, creating a new email filter to automatically sort family messages into a separate folder I could check on my own terms. I adjusted privacy settings on all social media accounts and notified my workplace security that my family members should not be admitted to the building without prior authorization. By evening, the practical aspects of financial separation were complete. I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset and feeling lighter than I had in years. The phone calls would come soon, I knew. The accusations and guilt trips would escalate before they subsided. But for the first time in my adult life, I had chosen my own well-being over family expectations. Family should lift you up, not drain you dry, I said aloud to the evening air, a mantra I would return to many times in the difficult days ahead. The first phase of fallout began within an hour of sending the email. My phone, now with a new number, remained silent, but my email inbox began filling with messages from Diana. The progression was fascinating in its predictability. Her first response expressed confusion. There must be some mistake with the bank. My card was declined when I tried to buy groceries. Can you check on this right away? When I did not immediately respond, the second email arrived 20 minutes later. I just saw your weird email. Is this some kind of joke? Call me ASAP. By the third hour, denial had transformed into anger. I cannot believe you would do this to your own family. After everything we have done for you. The children are crying because I had to tell them we cannot afford their summer camp now. I hope you are happy knowing you have made your niece and nephew suffer. My mother's response took longer but followed a similar pattern. Her initial message attempted to minimize the situation. Abigail, dear, I think you are overreacting to a little sisterly spat. Diana has always had a temper, you know that. Let us discuss this like adults instead of making rash financial decisions. Mark's loan contribution was brief and uncomfortable. I understand you are upset with Diana, but please consider the impact on the children. Perhaps we can work out a compromise. I read each message but responded to none following the boundary plan I had established. The emails would be acknowledged but not engaged with until I was ready to establish new terms for our relationship. The second day brought escalation. Diana attempted to call my old number repeatedly, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails that forwarded to my email as audio files. You cannot just cut us off like this, her voice trembled in one message. We have bills due this week. Mark's commission check does not arrive until next Friday. My mother took a more direct approach, appearing at my office building around lunchtime. Security called up following my instructions and politely turned her away. This prompted a scathing email about being humiliated by my own daughter's security guards and accusations that I was becoming an elitist who forgets where she came from. The most troubling development came that evening when I discovered Diana had posted a lengthy message on social media describing how her successful sister had abandoned the family without warning and how they were struggling to feed the children as a result. The post tagged several extended family members and close friends, clearly designed to marshal social pressure against me. Cousin Samantha called that evening, the only family member with my new number courtesy of my emergency contact list at work. What is going on with Diana? She asked without preamble. She is telling everyone you cut them off completely without warning and now they cannot afford groceries. I explained the situation calmly, including the years of financial support, the Hawaii demand, and yes, the slap. Samantha's initial skepticism faded as I shared specific details. That actually makes sense, she admitted. Diana has always had an entitled streak even as kids, and Aunt Eleanor enabled it constantly. By the end of our conversation, Samantha had promised to quietly correct the narrative with other family members. You did the right thing, she assured me. It should have happened years ago. The third phase of fallout began approximately 1 week after the cutoff. With denial and anger proving ineffective, bargaining emerged as the new strategy. Diana's emails shifted dramatically in tone, acknowledging communication issues and suggesting we both made mistakes. We could scale back the Hawaii trip, one message proposed. Maybe just a long weekend instead of 2 weeks. And we would not need you to watch the kids or contribute financially. My mother tried a different angle. Your sister is going through a difficult time right now. I know she has made mistakes in how she approached you, but family supports each other through hard times. Perhaps you could restore just the monthly support until they get back on their feet. Mark sent an awkward text to my work email. I understand your position and respect your decision. If you would consider a one-time loan to help us transition to this new arrangement, we would be grateful. We can discuss repayment terms. I continued my policy of reading but not responding, allowing the full reality of the situation to settle in for all involved. Financial counseling sessions with Barbara confirmed I was making the right decision both for myself and ultimately for my family members who needed to develop financial independence. The fourth phase revealed the practical consequences of my decision. Diana's social media posts abruptly stopped when she presumably realized they were not generating the expected sympathy or pressure. Instead, I received a terse email informing me that they had been forced to cancel the Hawaii trip and had lost the deposit due to my selfishness. A formal notice from the insurance company confirmed that Diana and Mark had been informed their vehicles would no longer be covered under my policy effective in 30 days. A similar notification from the cell phone company indicated service would terminate at the end of the billing cycle unless they established their own account. The children's school sent a polite email acknowledging my decision to discontinue tuition support after the current term and confirming they had notified the parents of the change. The school counselor Jessica called to check whether there were family circumstances they should be aware of that might affect the children's well-being. The children are loved and not in any danger, I assured her. This is strictly a financial boundary being established between adult family members. The fifth phase brought the most dramatic attempts at manipulation. 2 weeks after the cutoff, I received an urgent email from Mark informing me that Diana had experienced a severe panic attack and been taken to the emergency room. The doctor says it was brought on by extreme stress, he wrote. She keeps asking for you. I called the hospital directly rather than responding to Mark. The nurse confirmed Diana had been treated and released with a recommendation to follow up with her primary care physician. Nothing serious from a medical perspective, the nurse assured me when I identified myself as family. The following day, my mother left a voicemail claiming her blood pressure had skyrocketed due to the family conflict and that her doctor was very concerned about potential stroke risk. Again, I did not respond directly but made a discreet call to her neighbor, Irene, who confirmed my mother seemed perfectly fine and had been gardening vigorously that morning. The final desperate measure came in the form of an email from Mark, with the subject line, "Urgent Financial Crisis." The message explained that without my support they were facing potential eviction and repossession of their vehicle. "We will literally be homeless by the end of the month," he wrote. "Please, if you have any compassion left, help us one last time." I forwarded the email to Barbara, who confirmed my suspicion. "Based on what you have shared about their income, they should be able to cover basic housing and transportation costs," she noted. "They may need to downsize or adjust their lifestyle, but homelessness is an extreme exaggeration designed to trigger your guilt." Armed with this confirmation, I maintained my silence. The boundary was holding despite the escalating attempts to breach it. Each day that passed without my financial intervention forced my family to confront the reality of their situation and begin the process of adjustment. It was painful but necessary, like setting a broken bone so it could heal properly. As the intensity of family drama subsided, I turned my attention to rebuilding my own life. The first step involved professional help. I scheduled weekly sessions with Dr. Jessica Thompson, a therapist specializing in family relationship issues. "What you are experiencing is a normal grief process," Dr. Thompson explained during our first session. "Even though you made the right decision, you are mourning the family relationship you wished you had rather than the one that actually existed." These sessions provided crucial support as I navigated the complex emotions surrounding my decision. Dr. Thompson helped me identify unhealthy patterns I had internalized, particularly the belief that my value to my family was primarily financial rather than emotional. "You deserve to be loved for who you are, not what you could provide," she reminded me in moments when guilt threatened to overwhelm my resolve. Beyond therapy, I began reconnecting with friendships that had withered under the constant demands of family obligations. My college friend Heather responded with immediate warmth when I reached out after nearly a year of minimal contact. "I have missed you," she said simply when we met for coffee. "You seemed to disappear into family stuff whenever we made plans." The truth of her observation struck home. How many social events had I missed because of last-minute emergencies from Diana? How many potential friendships had faded because I prioritized family demands over developing new connections? At work, my colleague Rachel became a particularly important source of support. When Diana attempted to create a scene in the office lobby before security intervened, Rachel witnessed the commotion and offered a sympathetic ear afterward. My brother was the same way, she confided as we shared lunch in the break room. always in crisis, always needing money. It took me years to establish boundaries. Rachel's understanding came from lived experience, making her insights particularly valuable. She introduced me to online forums for people dealing with financially exploitative family members' communities, where stories similar to mine were shared daily. The professional consequences of family separation proved surprisingly positive. Without constant disruptions from family emergencies, my focus at work sharpened considerably. The major client project launched successfully, earning recognition from senior management. My boss Michael called me into his office after a particularly effective presentation. "Whatever personal changes you have made recently are working for you professionally," he noted. "Your concentration and creativity have reached new levels." When I briefly explained the family situation, Michael shared that he had implemented similar boundaries with his own brother years earlier. "The company has resources if you need support," he offered. "Our employee assistance program includes legal consultation if things escalate." This conversation led to an unexpected opportunity when Michael recommended me for a special leadership development program, something that would have been impossible to manage while serving as my family's financial safety net. As my professional life flourished, I began exploring the concept of family, more deeply seeking to understand the dynamics that had led to such dysfunction in my own experience. Books on toxic family systems and generational patterns provided valuable context, helping me see how my mother's enabling behavior toward Diana had roots in her own upbringing. I joined a support group for adults, establishing boundaries with family members, meeting bi-weekly in a community center downtown. The stories shared in that circle ranged from financial exploitation similar to mine to more severe forms of emotional and psychological abuse. Together we practiced techniques for maintaining boundaries and processing the guilt that often accompanied them. "Family is supposed to be a source of strength, not a constant drain," explained Sophia, our group facilitator. "Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling destructive behavior." Among the most difficult aspects of this period was determining how to maintain a relationship with my niece and nephew without enabling their parents. After 2 months of complete separation, I sent a carefully worded email to Mark, suggesting supervised visits with the children in public locations. To my surprise, he responded positively, perhaps recognizing that access to their aunt provided stability for the children during this transition. Our first meeting took place at a local park with Mark sitting at a distance, while I pushed the children on swings and listened to their school stories. Lily, perceptive beyond her 7 years, eventually asked the question I had been dreading. "Are you mad at Mommy? She says you do not love us anymore because you stopped helping." I knelt to her level, choosing my words carefully. "I love you and Benjamin very much. That will never change. Your mom and I have grown-up disagreements about how families should help each other. It has nothing to do with how much I love you." This simplified explanation seemed to satisfy her, and our monthly park visits became a treasured routine, gradually expanding to include museum trips and occasional lunches. As spring turned to summer, an unexpected development brought new joy to my reconstructed life. During a weekend photography class I had enrolled in to rediscover old hobbies, I met Andrew, a landscape architect with kind eyes and a thoughtful demeanor. Our conversation flowed easily from camera settings to favorite hiking trails, and by the end of the 6-week course we had established a comfortable rhythm of coffee dates and walks along the riverfront. "Tell me about your family," he asked during one such walk, the question I had come to dread in new relationships. To my surprise, the simplified version of events flowed easily without the shame or defensiveness I had anticipated. Andrew listened attentively, nodding at key points. "My parents divorced when I was 12, he shared afterward. My father used money to try controlling my mother and me for years afterward. She finally cut financial ties completely when I was in high school, even though it meant moving to a much smaller apartment. It was the healthiest decision she ever made for both of us." His understanding came from lived experience, making him uniquely equipped to respect the boundaries I had established. When he invited me to dinner with his mother Martha the following month, I observed firsthand what a healthy parent-child relationship could look like: mutual respect, appropriate boundaries, and genuine affection not tied to financial exchange. As September approached, I revisited my long-postponed Bali plans. The trip that had once seemed impossibly selfish now represented an important step in my journey towards self-prioritization. With encouragement from Dr. Thompson, I booked tickets for a 3-week solo adventure, the longest vacation I had ever taken. "You have earned this," Rachel insisted during our goodbye lunch before my departure. "Send lots of pictures, but also take time to just be present there." The Bali trip exceeded every expectation. From sunrise yoga overlooking rice terraces to conversations with fellow travelers from across the globe each day brought new perspectives and quiet joys. Sitting on a black sand beach watching the sunset on my final evening, I reflected on the remarkable journey of the past 6 months. The woman who had tolerated a slap in a restaurant bathroom now moved through the world with confidence and clear boundaries. The professional who had constantly interrupted work for family emergencies had earned a place in a prestigious leadership program. The sister and daughter who had measured her worth by financial contributions now understood her intrinsic value. As the sun slipped below the horizon, I made a decision about the path forward with my family. Not a return to old patterns, but not complete estrangement either. There would be carefully structured reconnection on new terms that honored my worth beyond what I could provide financially. 6 months after the restaurant confrontation, I agreed to meet Diana at a neutral location, a coffee shop equidistant between our homes. The woman who slid into the booth opposite me bore little resemblance to the entitled sister I had supported for years. Diana's designer clothes had been replaced by simple jeans and a department store sweater. The highlighted hair was now its natural brown, pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she began, hands wrapped tightly around her mug. "I was not sure you would." I nodded but said nothing, allowing the silence to encourage her to continue. "The past few months have been..." She paused, searching for words. "Challenging, but necessary, I think." Our conversation progressed cautiously, like two people speaking a newly learned language. Diana explained that after the initial shock and anger subsided, she and Mark had been forced to completely reassess their financial situation. They had downsized to a smaller apartment, reducing their rent by nearly 40%. Mark had taken on weekend work as a driver for a rideshare service to supplement his commission income. Most surprisingly, Diana had secured steady employment as an administrative assistant at a local medical office. "It is not glamorous," she admitted. "But the hours work with the kids' school schedule and they offer benefits after 90 days. I shared limited details about my own life: the leadership program at work, the photography class, my trip to Bali. Diana listened with what appeared to be genuine interest without the thinly veiled resentment that had characterized previous conversations about my achievements. "Mom is struggling to adjust," Diana said, as our meeting drew to a close. "She still talks about you coming to your senses eventually, but I think I understand why you did what you did. I would not have admitted this 6 months ago, but we took advantage of your generosity for years." This acknowledgement, however, small, represented significant growth. We parted with a brief awkward hug and a tentative plan to meet again the following month. 2 weeks later, I met with my mother at her house. The conversation proved more difficult, her perspective more firmly rooted in traditional family obligation. "Families help each other," she insisted, pouring tea into delicate cups. "I recognized from my childhood. That is what we do." "Help should be reciprocal," I countered gently, "and it should not come with slaps or public humiliation when declined." We circled these fundamental disagreements for nearly 2 hours, finding limited common ground. Yet even within her resistance, I noted small changes. The guilt trips were less pointed, the manipulation less skilled. Most tellingly, she did not ask for money once during our visit. As winter approached, I established a clear system of boundaries for family contact. I would meet Diana and the children once monthly for an activity of the children's choosing. I would visit my mother for Sunday dinner once every 6 weeks. All financial entanglements remained firmly severed, with no exceptions for emergencies or special occasions. At first, these boundaries were tested regularly. Diana mentioned school activity fees she was struggling to afford. Mom hinted at property tax increases. Each time I responded with empathy but firmness. That sounds challenging. I am confident you will find a solution that works for your budget. Over time, the financial requests diminished and eventually ceased entirely. Our conversations, while never completely comfortable, shifted toward genuine sharing rather than thinly disguised manipulation. The most unexpected outcome of the separation was the growth it prompted in my family members. Diana, faced with actual consequences for financial irresponsibility, developed budgeting skills she had never previously needed. She opened a savings account and proudly informed me when it reached $1,000, for actual emergencies, not vacations. Mark, freed from the safety net of my financial support, became more assertive at work, successfully negotiating a better commission structure with his employer. I realized I was settling for less because I knew you would cover the gaps, he admitted during a rare one-on-one conversation while Diana took the children for ice cream. Even my mother showed subtle signs of change. After decades of enabling Diana's dependence, she began encouraging her elder daughter's newfound independence. Your sister managed to secure that promotion at work entirely on her own, she mentioned during one of our dinners, a note of surprise and pride in her voice. My relationship with the children evolved in positive ways as well. Rather than being the aunt who provided gifts and treats, I became someone who offered experiences and attention. Our monthly outings to museums, parks, and community events built genuine connections based on shared interests rather than material exchange. Lily developed an enthusiasm for photography after I let her use my camera during a trip to the botanical gardens. Benjamin discovered a love for building when we attended a children's architecture workshop at the local museum. These connections, based on mutual interests rather than financial dependence, felt more authentic than anything we had shared previously. My personal transformation continued alongside these family changes. The relationship with Andrew deepened, gradually built on mutual respect and clear communication. Unlike previous relationships where I had automatically assumed the role of provider and problem solver, this connection developed with healthy give and take. I appreciate how direct you are about boundaries, Andrew commented after I clearly stated my need for alone time one weekend. It makes it easy to understand where we stand with each other. My professional life flourished under the freedom from constant family crises. The leadership program led to a significant promotion with additional responsibilities that challenged and engaged me. Colleagues who had previously known me as reliable but reserved now commented on my increased confidence and creativity. You take up space in a room differently now, Rachel observed after I successfully led a client presentation. Like you know your worth and are not apologizing for it. This new confidence extended beyond work into all areas of my life. I volunteered for community organizations, joined a weekend hiking group, and even took a public speaking course that would have terrified me a year earlier. Each new experience reinforced what therapy had been teaching me all along: my value was intrinsic, not determined by what I could provide to others. As the one-year anniversary of the confrontation approached, I reflected on the profound lessons this journey had taught me. True love does not exploit or demand. It respects and nurtures. Sometimes helping means not helping, allowing others to develop their own resources and resilience. Forgiveness is possible without returning to harmful patterns. Most importantly, self-respect forms the foundation upon which all healthy relationships must be built. My family relationships would never be what I had once imagined, warm, supportive, and uncomplicated. Instead, they had evolved into something more realistic, imperfect connections between flawed individuals, governed by clear boundaries and mutual respect. There was still awkwardness, occasional tension, and the weight of past injuries not fully healed. But there was also growth, authenticity, and the freedom that comes with truth. The slap that had once seemed like an ending had actually been a beginning, painful but necessary, like so many meaningful transformations. By saying no to exploitation disguised as family obligation, I had opened the door to genuine connection based on choice, rather than coercion, on respect, rather than requirement. As I watch the sunset from my balcony this evening, I feel profound gratitude for the difficult journey of the past year. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to draw a line even when it hurts, even when it seems easier to continue in comfortable dysfunction. True family, whether biological or chosen, supports your growth rather than restricting it, celebrates your success rather than exploiting it, and respects your boundaries rather than punishing them. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took you for granted? What helped you find the courage to finally say enough? Leave a comment below sharing your experience, and subscribe to hear more stories about reclaiming your power in toxic relationships. Remember to like this video if it resonated with you and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember your worth is never determined by how much you give, but by who you authentically are.